Hey, Good Success community, Josh Culler here, host of the Good Success podcast. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode. But before we get into this awesome episode of the Good Success podcast, we'd like to take a quick minute and thank our sponsors. And first is Sharper Business Solutions and our good friend Gary Harper. And listen, your business is a personal endeavor that you have poured your blood, sweat, and tears into. Sharper Business Solutions is a full-service solution to help you scale your dream. Sharper Business Solutions implements the Sharper process and other key systems, giving you the confidence and freedom to keep growing and scaling as a company. The Sharper team wants to come alongside you and provide the resources needed for long-term growth and success. Schedule your free consultation today at sharperprocess.com. And let me tell you, these guys are amazing. A lot of our mastermind members have hired Gary and the Sharper team to come and implement EOS and processes and systems into their business, and their scaling is very, very much apparent, and they've grown exponentially. So make sure you guys check them out one more time. That's sharperprocess.com. And we'd like to say a quick thank you to Veterans Path Up and our good friend Ken Lacey. And Veterans Path Up's mission is to provide affordable, stable housing to veterans and veteran families through the use of shared living, single-family residences, and ultimately a path to home ownership. Their emphasis is to provide housing for homeless, working, and disabled veterans, many of whom do not qualify for long-term support from any government agency. Veterans Path Up ascribes to the philosophy of helping those with a hand up as opposed to a hand out. Veterans Path Up provides a critical link to the veteran by bridging the gap to other supportive veteran services. This is accomplished through education and awareness to available support, with the ultimate goal of getting the veteran and family on a path to self-sufficiency. Through the use of private and philanthropic funding, Veterans Path Up acquires, rehabs, and places veterans into the appropriate housing for where they are with respect to their current financial picture. Improving neighborhood housing and showing veterans a path up strengthens the community and strengthens the country while helping those who have protected our freedom. You can visit veteranspathup.org to make a donation or find out how you can help impact our veterans even further. So without further ado, let's take a quick sneak peek of what you'll hear on this episode of the Good Success podcast.
It's so important. You know, we've all been to these conventions where you see the person writing down the notes from the speaker, but they've been there for the last 10 years and they haven't changed. You know,
Absolutely.
and it's like, dude, the money that you spent going to all these conventions, you probably could have bought in a house. You know, I mean, it's so true. It's like you're either gonna actually apply or you're not.
Welcome back to the Good Success Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Culler. Got Tom Olson, president of Good Success, sitting very closely right next to me. We got it down to one mic, so we're good to go. It's okay. You can still sit close.
I like the one mic.
It's okay.
I think
they can see our faces now.
They can see our
radio
faces now.
Yeah, exactly.
I just have to make sure we wear deodorant and we're good.
Yeah, so we're good to go. So today we got an exciting episode for you. This is going to be new for me because it's my first time actually meeting him, but Jason Engelman out of Nashville, Tennessee. And Tom, I'm actually going to let you introduce him.
Absolutely. So Jason, thank you so much for being on the show today. I actually met Jason at a Think Realty event, and if you guys know us, we go to most of the Think Realty events. I'm really close-knit with some of the leaders in that organization. I'm a part of even their leadership circle, which actually I think by the time this airs will actually have already gone, or this actually might be the same week that we're going to be on Capitol Hill talking to senators with them, and maybe even working with HUD and talking with them about how to represent real estate entrepreneurs, because there's really not a whole lot of people representing them in Congress. So we're really trying to go to Capitol Hill and start a conversation with them. But I met Jason at that event, at the leadership circle, and I just thought there was a ton of synergies between Good Success and what he's doing, and he has an amazing story. And I'm going to just kind of introduce him a little bit here, but basically he's a wholesaler, all right? And he wholesales houses, and he's a Christian businessman, just like everybody else that's listening on this Good Success podcast. And he has a radio show that's called Synergies. Is that right? So it's called Synergies, and it's a Christian radio show, just basically like try to help people get into the Word and really talking more about biblical principles, which is really like what Good Success is all about, sharing principles for real success or the right kind of success. And where does all the right kind of success come from? It comes from the Bible. And so Jason, can you just maybe tell us a little bit before we get on, and we're going to kind of go away from you, just tell us a little bit about that ministry and that radio show.
Sure. Thank you guys so much for letting me be a part of this. It's an honor to have this opportunity. So thank you. Just to give you a very brief backstory on who we are and what we do. So our ministry is Revolution 13, and there's many ministries or departments under that umbrella. One is the radio show, which is called Synergy. We're on 29 stations in 14 states. And then also one thing that's very important to us is our Reflect ministry, and we go into the public schools. We work with high school students, middle school students, and we'll actually give a full presentation to the full student body. We cover topics like depression, bullying, suicide, drugs, and alcohol, and danger of that. And then what's funny goes along with the name of your podcast, but what true success really is and what that looks like. And so that's our ministry, and God's just opened up many doors for us. And one way that we're able to do that is through real estate. So it's kind of cool to be able to talk about it a little bit with you guys.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So we'll actually have him talk a little bit more about his wholesaling background. But before we get into it, if you guys haven't already, make sure you have subscribed to the Good Success Podcast, or just to make it easier, go download the official Good Success app. So go to either the Apple Store for the Apple Store for Apple and iPhone, or the Google Play Store for Android. And all you got to do is search Good Success. You'll see our big orange logo there with the G, and all you gotta do is download it, and then you can listen to all of the podcasts on that official app. So it's 10 times easier than going to Spotify or Stitcher or Apple Podcasts, but make sure you do that. So just a little bit of a shameless
Josh,
plug.
I actually have a surprise for you.
You have a surprise for me?
You don't even know about this,
Okay.
Josh.
What's the
So
surprise?
last night we had a meeting with our marketing team last night, and we're actually putting the podcast on our website. So we have a podcast website, but we're actually putting the podcast on our Good Success website. In addition to that, our blog site is going to be fully up and functioning in the next. We've been doing some blogs. We've been having blogs, but we're going to have a continuation of continue more and more blogs on our website. So check out just check out goodsuccess.com, and then in addition to that, all of these videos are going to be on YouTube, and they will also be kind of sitting on our website as well to be able to scroll through all the episodes. So I think that's something cool that's happening right now, and I'm super excited about that. So
Yeah.
goodsuccess.com, you can find us there for that too.
Yeah, absolutely. So you guys are watching these videos on Facebook right now, and probably YouTube, because they are on YouTube, but we're going to be pushing that even more. So make sure that you're subscribing to, if you are a YouTuber, then go to YouTube and subscribe to the channel. If you're more of a Facebook person and you don't like YouTube, then hey, give us a like and just continue to watch these. So,
or if you're on Instagram or LinkedIn, a lot of this content hasn't been going out on that, but we are going to be doing a lot more short tip videos and quick tip videos, along with some other things on Instagram and LinkedIn as well. So, we actually did a study, Josh, on all of our followers, and our base is a lot larger than we thought. So, so we kind of did a cross-pollination of like who's following us on Facebook, who's following us on LinkedIn, who's following us on Instagram, and they're a completely different group of people. So, and a lot of the people are probably listening to the podcast because the podcast actually has the largest base of people listening, other than my personal Facebook page, which is kind of crazy. I don't understand why that works that way, but it is what it is. But anyways, go like us on those platforms, and we will be in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the Good Success Mastermind coming up May 14th through 18th in Miami, Florida. We're very excited about it. It's happening on Tuesday through Saturday, so it's going to be a full week, but you split into 2 groups. But I'm going to let Tom talk about this a little bit. So Tom, give us a rundown of the Mastermind in May.
Absolutely. Mastermind is for the people who are struggling with their business, and really it's for the Christian entrepreneur that wants to go to a place and say, hey, I want to be in a trusted room with people that have my best interests at heart. Not just people that want to talk because they like to hear themselves talk, or they think they have all the worldly principles of how to be successful, but also somebody who's willing to say, hey, let me think about that. Maybe let me pray about that. Let me get back to you, and then make sure that what I'm telling you as advice is not just something I just read from a book, which sometimes books are great. I get it. And I read all the time. I read every day pretty much. But advice that they really believe is going to be helpful and beneficial for you, not just in this lifetime, but throughout eternity. We really want to have a full good success community. So that's what the Mastermind's for. Elite business entrepreneurs, people that can give, and people that are willing to be vulnerable and say, hey, I need help. That's who the Mastermind is for. So if you can join us, May 14, 15, or 16, or 16, 17, 18, please sign up at goodsuccess.com, fill out an application. You can get with me, and I will give you a call, and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, absolutely. So one more time, goodsuccess.com/mastermind is where you can fill out the application. Make sure you fill that out because we do vet the people that are in the room. The culture in the room is absolutely amazing. If you've been to the Mastermind, you know exactly what we're talking about, and you know the people that are in there is just an amazing group of people. So goodsuccess.com/mastermind, fill out the application, and then Tom will jump on a phone call with you to see if you're a good fit and vice versa. So that's that. And then the Community Go-Giver event, June 26, 27, 28, right here in our office in Gary, Indiana. We're very excited about it. It's going to be a great event, but we are selling out at 80 tickets. So once we hit 80 tickets, Fire Marshal says we can't take any more people. You're not going to want to miss it. We have a great group of people too, but speakers that are going to be there. So Tom, let's talk about the Community Go-Giver event a little bit.
Yeah, tickets are selling. I actually had a call yesterday from a guy. He's like, are any tickets available? I'm like, yes, they're still available. So get on right now. And guess what? I'm going to give you a secret. So if you're listening to this podcast, if you will go to thecommunitygogiver.com, that's the website, and you will put in promo code community. So this is only for the people listening to this podcast right now. This is a secret promo code. If you put community in there, you're going to get 30% off the ticket price. So it's like for you can get 2 seats for $500. I mean, it barely is covering the cost of our cost and in the deal, and that's really all we're trying to do. We're just trying to get a crowd and trying to help people figure out how we're flipping the city of Gary, Indiana, and how you can either come along and help us by being an investor and by benefiting from the amazing deals that we're getting right now in our neighborhood, or how you can learn from us and then go do it in your neighborhood. How you can use real estate to positively impact your community, and how you can benefit from our network and from our resources.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're excited about it. CommunityGoGiver.com is where you can pick up your tickets today with the secret passcode.
What is that again?
Community. So type that in and you get 30% off. Come on,
pretty easy. Community Go-Giver, community.
Exactly. You have no excuses now, so make sure you do it.
Look, I think Jason's he's
doing it right now.
Yes, I got it.
Look, he's ordering tickets.
Great.
Look,
it went through.
10. Give me 10.
Awesome. All right, cool. So that is going to do it for our stuff. Let's go ahead and jump into this podcast episode today. I'm very excited to have Jason Engelman. This is my first time actually talking to him, so I'm excited about it. But besides texting and getting this actually scheduled to have the recording done, so I'm excited to get to learn a little bit more about Jason, what he's all about. I did not know about the radio show, so that's awesome. But Jason, for the people that don't know who you are, do us a favor and give us an introduction of who you are, what you do, and how long you've been doing all that.
Sure, that's dangerous when you ask a preacher to say something like that, just because he could take 2 hours just being the introduction.
The introduction, yeah. And now I'll get into the sermon.
Yeah, so just to kind of give you a really quick, and I'll talk fast, basic introduction of who I am. So I grew up in a pastor's home, and at a young age surrendered to ministry work and went off to Bible college. And that's kind of how I know Tom just a little bit. When I met him at the Think Realty leadership group, I saw him sitting, and he mentioned something. I was like, wait a second, I know that guy. I think I've seen him sing before. And so I recognize your face, Tom. But yeah, so I was actually in ministry work. And long story short, my mother passed away of cancer, threw me for a loop. I was a junior in college, and kind of got out of ministry work, kind of ran from God a little bit. And I was just really discouraged, and eventually got my life back on track and surrendered again to God and his calling on my life. And so I was a student pastor for my dad at his church in Fort Worth. And just kind of give you a little backstory, though, I've always been an entrepreneur, somebody who enjoyed business, someone who was taught at a young age to work. My first job was selling donuts when I was 10. My mom would wake me up early Saturday morning. She made this deal with some donut place in Texas. We'll buy 20 dozen boxes of donuts for $2 a box. And she would drive me around to all the mechanic garages and car washes, and I was selling for $4.
That's awesome.
And so I did that for about 4 or 5 years. And so at an early age, just learning business and learning to speak and present yourself and to make sales. And so I've been in that business, sales business for most of my life. So when I was a student minister for my dad, I also worked for an oil company and did really well with that. And eventually the oil market tanked. And I kind of felt like that was God calling me into just doing full ministry through Revolution 13, which I mentioned earlier, has a radio show. And then we also travel the country and go into high schools and middle schools and speak to the students. And but there's no money in that. It's really hard to pay the bills. And so just to kind of give you an idea of how I got into real estate. So in Texas, where I lived at the time, I had $50 in my name, and I went to Home Depot, bought a window washing equipment, and just started washing windows. And that's how I paid the bills. But then we moved to Tennessee, and I was just burnt out and tried to figure out a way to make money and somehow in a different way. And I answered an ad on Craigslist for a real estate company, job posting, and that's how I got into the real estate business.
Oh, awesome. So tell us let's go deep into the real estate then. So
Sure.
What's your background in wholesaling? How did you get into that a little bit further? So you mentioned the Craigslist ad, but kind of your roots in the real estate world. How did all that go down?
Yeah. So I'm a firm believer of persistence. You know, a lot of people, especially millennials, they don't like to be persistent. And I always tell them and teach them, look, if you want to be successful in life, I think the number one key is persistence. People who've been in business for a long time, they appreciate that. They respect that. And you may feel like you're bugging them. A lot of times I bug the daylights out of people, and I always feel guilty doing it, but I still do it because I know the end results. And I know the real people appreciate that, respect that. You may annoy them, but they'll respect that. And so I answered an ad on Craigslist. It turned out to be a wholesaling company based out of California. And they were looking for an acquisitions manager in Nashville. They had just opened up an office. And for most real estate people, you know, Nashville's a hot market. At one point, 2017, 2018, it was one of the number one markets for investors. And 100 people were moving here on a daily basis. And so it was just booming. And so they were needing an acquisitions manager, and I literally bugged the daylights out of them until they gave me the job. And I mean, they wouldn't answer my emails, they wouldn't answer my phone calls, but I just literally blew them up. And eventually when they called me back and they gave me the job, they said the number one reason why is because you're persistent. So just side note, be persistent. People.
So if you're wanting to be an acquisition manager, just be persistent. You got to get the deals right. To get the deals, you got to be persistent.
Absolutely. You got to be persistent with leads that come in. You got to be persistent with people who want to sell their house, but they may not want what you're offering. Just be persistent. It pays off.
Yeah, I think that's really key to even point that out, just because a lot of people, they get so close to getting where they want to get to, or so close to like actually seeing the fruits of their labor, and then they just give up, or they don't, or they go into a different career path, or they go do something else that's totally different than what they're doing. And like, you know, if you read the book, have you read the book Outliers?
Yes, actually I have.
It's a great book, but like one of the main stories and key principles in the whole book basically talks about 10,000 hours. Yep. And how in order to get good at anything in life, you've got to basically give it 10,000 hours. And even brings it back to the story of Jesus. You know, Jesus in the Bible, basically his whole ministry was about 3.5 years, which if you think about it in a 6 or 7 day a week ministry, it's about 10,000 hours. And even the Beatles, you know, like they worked forever and never even were noticed until they worked that 10,000 hours. So I think it's very important. You know, a lot of times people just want instant success, and they don't understand that the instant success isn't ever going to happen. It's the daily grind or the daily success that you have every single day of being disciplined, right, and saying no to the things that you might want to do that day so you can say yes to the things that are more necessary.
Hey guys, we're going to take a quick break from the podcast and say a huge thank you to our sponsor, Jerry Padilla, a senior loan originator with Prime Lending. And whether you're a first-time homebuyer or you're well-versed in the process, buying or refinancing a home can be an exciting and rewarding experience with Prime Lending. Serving you in every state, they take the time to listen, and they'll work with you to find a home loan that fits your needs. With the mortgage refinancing, lower your interest rate, lower your monthly payments, shorten your term, or get the cash for whatever you need. Prime Lending also has several options for renovation loans so that you can find what works best for you in your home project. Make sure to contact our good friend and Good Success Mastermind member, Jerry Padilla, who is a senior loan originator with Prime Lending and has over 11 years of experience in the mortgage industry. You can learn more about Prime Lending and what they have to offer by contacting Jerry Padilla at goodsuccess.com/prime lending. So make sure you take advantage of that to learn more about them. Now, without further ado, let's get back to the show.
Sure. And, mentioning that and the instant success that so many people crave, I think one thing that people fall in the trap, they see these Facebook ads of, these people driving Teslas and saying, hey, look, this check for $5,000, I just got, I'm going to cash it. And what happens is millennials, and I'm a millennial, there's two different groups. There's the young millennials and the old millennials. And I like to make sure that people know the difference. But a lot of millennials, a lot of the older millennials, they still have that work ethic. But a lot of the millennials, though, they have bought into this instant success. They've heard some story and they've bought into it. And it becomes where they believe that that's what they deserve. Mm-hmm. And that's just not the case. Every once in a while, you get lucky. You find maybe a hot lead that becomes an instant success. But over time, you got to really be consistent. And I think that's key, is persistence, consistency, not getting complacent, and also persevering when things get tough, because they always get tough.
I'm glad you said that, because me and my wife had this conversation this morning, and she kind of ripped me a little bit, and I'll be a little vulnerable here on the podcast. But we had an earnest money check that got lost in the mail. And like, this doesn't normally happen. It's like, but so we sent out, and it's a cashier's check. So now it's like, you can't just cancel the check and send a new check. And I was kind of having a bit of a pity party for myself. And I'm like, come on, like, why does this stuff happen? And my wife leaned over to me and she's like, we all feel entitled sometimes, don't we? And I'm like, gosh, Becky, like, stop it. Don't give me that. But she was absolutely right. Like, we all have to, that's one of those things that we all have to keep pushing down. We always have to push fear down. We always have to push pride down, because in the end of the day, that's what you're talking about. Yeah. You're talking about the pride that comes up in every single one of us every single day, that somehow we got to find a way. And I don't care if you're a millennial or if you're an older person, it doesn't matter. We all struggle with that same issue of pride, that we feel like we're entitled to something, or something should happen just because we were born, and we are God's gift to this earth. So, God should just make everything go perfect for us.
Right. And I think one key, I mentioned it today on our radio show, is complacency. I mentioned it just briefly earlier. Complacency is such a bad disease, and all of us can fall prey to it. That's one of the things that I'm constantly having to fight. And that could be in anything in your daily life. That could be at work, that could be in your marriage, that could be in your relationship with God. And you just have to fight that complacency, because we get to a point where all of a sudden we feel like we're okay, we've arrived, and we get complacent. That's when things begin to slack. That's when things begin to fall apart. And I think being persistent and chasing the goal, and not getting complacent with where you're at or what you've already achieved, is very key to being successful in anything.
Absolutely. So I'm a back-end millennial, so I'm 25, right? And I get exactly what Jason's saying here. So I hope you're not talking to me.
He's like, no, you're not in the back end.
No. It's funny. If you look up millennials, there's so many different age groups, but some people have it from 82 to 98. Right. Or 2000. So, it's really weird how it's broken down, but if you're 18, 19, 20, you're still considered millennial. And but if you're 32, 33, you're considered a millennial. So it's funny how it works.
It's interesting. But you're dead on with that. I think there's a lot of entitlement in my generation specifically. A lot of people that aren't willing to be consistent, and they get stagnant, they get complacent, and that's important to understand if you're a younger person listening in right now, is to keep that going. I mean, over the 150-ish episodes that we've interviewed people on the show here, one of the biggest things that they always talk about is taking action and staying consistent with it. So I think that's highly important. So Jason, let's talk about what you're doing today in the real estate world. So you talked about how you got into it a little bit, but let's talk about what you're doing today.
Sure. So that's funny. So I started working for this company in California, and they didn't really know what they were doing. It seemed like I was fortunate. They taught me the business, but I immediately just started growing the company here. And in 6 months, we had sold 13 properties, which to me, I thought was pretty good on my end. and being so new to the business. But they were spending tons of money in marketing, and eventually closed up shop here in Nashville, let me go, and moved to a different market. And so being the entrepreneur mind that I have, I was like, well, shoot, I can do this on my own. And just literally, one of my favorite stories, I had $20 to my name, literally $20 to my name. And I handwrote some letters, that's not proper. Handwrote some letters and went to the post office with that $20 and mailed them out. And literally, I prayed over those letters, said, God, I need something to come from this, because literally I have bills to pay and I don't know how I'm going to do it. Sent those out, and I got a call the next day, and literally set up. So I mailed those Wednesday, got a call Thursday. I mean, that never happens, right? And I set up the appointment Friday, and literally took one of my buyers with me and walked through. He said, yes, I'll take it. I locked it up on a contract and signed it that day, and made $10,000. Now that doesn't always happen, but that was just kind of God's blessing on me. And so that's one of my favorite stories to tell. And that's, I think, one of the benefits of wholesaling is you have that opportunity, but again, it's just being persistent, because just to be vulnerable, like you were earlier, Tom, January and February have been horrible months. I've had deals fall through. I haven't had anything come in. And so it can be very, very dangerous. Or not dangerous, but it can be very tough. And so, it's just key being persistent. But anyways, to answer your question, I know I kind of went off on a rabbit trail. I have a wholesaling business here in Nashville, and I've been working on that, but now I'm taking it to the next level. I have some properties I have 16 properties in Columbus, Georgia, that me and a couple other people are closing on. So it'll be my first acquisitions as purchasing the properties that I'm super excited about. And then looking at purchasing 27 properties in Knoxville, Tennessee. So we're wholesaling, but now we're trying to start to build off of that foundation from wholesaling.
Yeah, awesome stuff. So you're expanding it a little bit out into other markets, it sounds like. So that's good to hear.
So are you wholesaling those other ones, or are you holding those?
So the ones in Georgia, I'm actually purchasing those, and then we're just carpet paint, putting them back up on the market. And then the ones in Knoxville are going to be a buy and hold.
Yeah, awesome. Great stuff. So when it comes down to wholesaling, it sounds like that's your primary business then, and maybe the only thing that you do as a exit strategy for your business. What are some things in the wholesaling world that people might not, you being an entrepreneur, I'm sure that you find ways to make things happen. If something falls through, if something goes bad, you always find a way to make it happen still. What are some things that you could share with maybe some people that are on the show that are newer into wholesaling, or maybe they're wanting to get into wholesaling, that you could share with them that you have found works in the wholesaling world?
Sure. Oh man, there's so much I could share with that. First of all, I go to the real estate conventions. What do you do? I'm a wholesaler, and you just see the faces, they're like, oh my gosh. Because believe it or not, there's a whole lot of bad wholesalers out there. I mean, very few have I actually met that I would be proud to say, oh yeah, you're a wholesaler, so am I. You know what I'm saying? And I'm really careful when I have a list of buyers, and I could easily have 200-300 buyers. I keep my list very small, and the reason why is because I never need to go past them. I find good deals, and I build a solid relationship with, and so that's all I need. And whenever I'm talking to a new buyer, I make sure to stress that look, I'm not like your normal wholesaler. I'm not just a fly-by-night guy who's just trying to make a quick buck. And to me, that's very important because, I mentioned earlier the Facebook ads. I see them all the time. Scrolling through Facebook, and there'll be an ad that pops up. Learn how to flip a house with no money down and no risk. And if you click and you follow it, it's more about wholesaling. And then and if you look at the comments, you'll have hundreds of thousands of people commenting, I'm interested. Now, I'm totally cool with people wanting to better themselves, but you just got to be careful who you're bettering yourself with. Mm-hmm. And so then a lot of times I'm running across wholesalers who are muddying the waters in a negative way, because I watched some Facebook ad, and it just doesn't work that way.
Absolutely. So what are some ways in real estate then that you've been able to use real estate as a vehicle to kind of achieve your dreams and things that you want to do on maybe a day-to-day basis, but more in life? Maybe it's in your ministry, maybe it's just personal life or whatever. How have you been able to use real estate as a vehicle for that?
Sure. If you don't mind, I'm going to pause that question and go back to the previous question. There was one thing that I wanted to say.
Make it happen.
If I don't tell you, I feel like
make it happen. We're going to have to shoot another episode if we don't.
If you're going to be a wholesaler, I think the number one key is making sure that you got accurate numbers. A lot of times, I'll have a wholesaler bring me a deal that they want me to sell to my buyer. And I'll say, what's the rehab cost? And it'll be like $20,000. And I'm like, there's no way. I mean, there's just absolutely no way. It's a 2,500 square foot house. Like, that's just not going to happen, right? But that's what happens. A lot of people don't respect wholesalers because they don't give accurate numbers. So if you're going to be successful in wholesaling, make sure that you have great numbers. Make sure you have a good deal. Make sure that you know what your investors are looking for and what type of ROI that they're wanting. If your real estate investor wants 20% on his money, don't bring him a deal where he's only going to make 10%. It's just going to give you a bad reputation. So I think that's key, is just making sure that your numbers fit. I had a mentor of mine tell me in this business, the stars may lie, but numbers never do. So make sure your numbers are accurate, because that is what is key. So I wanted to make sure I got that out.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I would totally agree with that.
And then your question was, how does real estate allow me to do my ministry? Is that correct?
Yeah, well, achieve your dream. So how do you use real estate as a vehicle to actually do things that you want to do in life, in business, in your ministry?
Sure. So I'm not a 9-to-5 kind of guy. I don't like sitting in traffic for an hour both ways, going to work and coming home from work. I feel like a caged lion in an office, And so a lot of people, they're like, how can you be an entrepreneur? How are you willing to risk everything, and how do you handle the struggle? And the truth is, you're either going to choose one of two things. You're either going to choose security, or you're going to choose freedom. And a lot of people choose security, and they'll work a job that they're miserable in, that they hate, but it pays the bills, and so they'll struggle through that. Whereas there are some people who will go the more freedom route, where you work for yourself and you're building your own dreams and not somebody else's. And for me, I think that's the key, is that real estate provides a freedom for me. Freedom time-wise. I could travel. I'm going down. Well, first of all, Tom, I'm meeting you in Washington on the Hill. And so I'm flying there. And then on Saturday morning, I'm not even staying for the convention. I'm just there for the leadership circle. Saturday morning, I'm flying back to Nashville. I'm hopping in a car. I'm driving down to New Orleans, and I'm speaking to a school down there on Monday morning to over 1,500 students. And then I'm able to hop back in my car, head to work here in Nashville, and then get back in my car and head to Mobile, Alabama, where I'm going to be speaking at a Christian men's group. So it allows me to have the freedom, but still at the same time, I'm on my phone, I'm sending out emails, whether I'm in Washington, Louisiana, Alabama. And so it allows me to get that work done. And I think that's key, number one. And then number two, real estate has the way of providing financial freedom as well. So you have the time freedom, but you also have the financial freedom that it can provide. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of hard work. But through that financial freedom, I'm able to fund my ministry. I hate having to ask people for donations. I hate having to ask people for sponsorship. I do it, but I hate it. And if I can fund it through my own resources that God's provided, I like to do that more.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have a lot that you have shared with us so far, and a lot of it's like been personal experiences that you've gone through. So what are a couple things that you have learned going through those? I mean, you gave us like 3 or 4 stories already of things that you've struggled with that you've had to go through in order to be where you're at today. So what are maybe like 2 or 3 things that you have learned, like maybe hardcore life lessons that you've learned out of those situations that you could share with the audience?
Sure. One thing, and I know you're probably going to ask this what it means already, but I'm going to kind of intertwine the two. Something I live by, it's a motto, it's a Bible verse that I use as a motto. He that walks with wise men will be wise. And I think that's the key, is just building a solid circle. There's so many sharks in this business. And if you're not careful, I know so many people who invested their first check into a house that they weren't given accurate numbers on, and they lost everything. So to me, it's making sure, if you're going to get in this business, get in with a good group. A little plug here, Good Success. If you want to be in a good group, get in with them, and because that's that's so key.
That's a good advice.
Pretty good.
That's good
pretty
advice
good advice.
right there.
Yes.
Come join the Good Success Mastermind.
It's so true, though. I mean, you want to make sure that you got people around you that you can trust that's not going to take advantage of you. And just because they say they're a Christian does not mean that they're going to have your best interest at heart. So it's really using discernment and getting in with the right people. That's number one. Number two, like I said already, is make sure you have good, solid numbers. Find a good contractor that you can trust, that maybe you can partner up with on deals and say, hey, look, I'm willing to give you a percentage of my deal if you walk these properties with me and you help me get good, accurate numbers. That way, when I present them to my my investors, my buyers, I can say, look, here's the numbers. And so I did that. And I'm fortunate enough, I have a great partner. And every time I give the numbers, they're dead on. And my investors and my buyers love that and appreciate that and respect that. And it helps me in the long run. I've only had one deal where my buyer didn't do well on it. And it had something to do with the house, had nothing to do with me or my numbers. So I take pride in that.
Yeah, absolutely. So
I love what you said, though, about like the money that you make allows you to do the ministry, which is kind of a part of our whole mantra at Good Success of working to have to give, working with your hands, the thing which is do something good that's good for people, that's good for the environment, that's good for, the well-being of customers somewhere. But then work so you can have, so that way you can give, and then your ministry being what you're giving towards. So I just love that whole process that I believe that God's given us as our life process of being the conduit, not just having, life just so we can have.
Sure. Well, to whom much is given, much is required. And so, you have to take heart to that and really try to apply that. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these righteousness shall be added unto you. That's so important. And if you're not careful, you can forget that. As Christian business owners and leaders and people in the business world that are Christians, it can be I got ADD. You dangle a carrot in front of me and I'm chasing it. And so you got to be careful that you're doing things for the right reason and that you got the right target in place, which is pursuing the mark of the high calling. And when you're doing that and you're trusting God and you're living by faith doesn't necessarily mean you're praying down for someone to come write a check for $10,000 and leave it under your doormat. Living by faith could be like, God, I'm out here working really hard and I need you to provide a lead for me. I need you to have somebody call me out of the blue that maybe was recommended to me by somebody else I worked with. Provide something for me. Living by faith. And God will do that. He'll work through what you're already doing to answer your prayers. And then it helps you remind yourself, okay, I can't depend on me. I have to depend on God. And when he provides, I need to praise him. When things aren't going my way and I'm struggling, I need to praise him because I know that he'll never let me down. And then when you receive those blessings, then you should want to give to other people because he gave to you. I mean, to me, it's common sense.
Yeah, living by faith is like writing out, handwriting direct mail, right, and giving, sending those out. So
yeah, but
awesome.
It's the action that was taken.
Exactly.
So you basically prove your faith by your works. So you have to do the works. He had to write the letters to actually prove that he believed that anything would happen. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's a key core concept in not just business but in life.
Sure, 100%. So you skimmed over it a little bit, but you've talked about people and surrounding yourselves with the right kind of people. Maybe let's spend like 5 or 10 minutes on this because I know this is a very, very interesting topic because people are the reason why we do what we do, right? But at the same time, in order to get to a certain destination or get to a certain level in business or in personal life, you got to hang around the right people. So what are your thoughts on this? Spend maybe 5 or 10 minutes on this. I know that you could probably go all day about it. So give us some feedback about why it's important to surround yourself with the right people.
Well, first of all, you are who you surround yourself with. So I love this. Take a list of your 5 people and rank them from 1 to 10 of the quality of person that they are. And then divide that into an average, and that is what you are. So if you got 2 friends that are 10s and you got a friend that's a 2 and a 5, add that all up and then divide that, and what number you get is what you are. And so that's very, very important. If you can surround yourself around. So how do you get your number up? Let's say you do that and you're a 5. How do you go from a 5 to a 10? Well, you start eliminating the people that aren't 10s.
Yeah.
You start adding people that are 10s. And then that will average to a position to where you want to be. So I think that's really key, finding your circle and then working your circle. So to me, marketing and communicating and networking is everything. Connecting is everything. And so that's really important. Having discernment, praying that God gives you that discernment is also key. But I have a different group. So I have 5 spiritual people. That's my circle that I go to. My dad is one of them. In fact, my dad's number 1. So he's in my 5. And 2 of them are 3 of them are pastors, and the one's a Christian businessman, Eddie Wilson. So that's my 5, and I go to them for spiritual reasons. Then I have 4 or 5 people that I trust in the business world who are doing real estate, who do it every day, that I can go to and say, hey, I have this, what do I need to do? Or sometimes, being an entrepreneur can be very lonely, and that's why it's important to have that circle, because there will be days where you just want to quit, where you're down, you're discouraged, and you just need to vent to somebody. And then somebody will be like, hey, look, I've been where you're at, and this is what's going to happen. So just keep the course, keep the fight going. So that's very important as well. Does that answer your question?
No,
so
absolutely.
Just so you know, Jason, I can be one of those people you can vent to anytime you want to vent to.
Well,
I'll encourage you.
I need $400,000 tomorrow, Tom, for a deal that I have. I'm struggling, so if you can help me with that.
He's venting to you right now.
Yeah.
I don't. Think
that's a dangerous offer right there, Tom.
That's not the kind of that's not the kind of venting you were talking about.
That's funny.
So, anyways, you know what's funny, Josh, is I feel like we just had this conversation. So we just did a podcast on 30 questions to have good success, and one of my questions was, who is your top 5?
Yeah.
Who are those 5 people that you have put in your life as your circle, your sphere of influence, your, in the multitude of counselors or safety? And it's not, it shouldn't be, if you're a millennial, for instance, we've talked about millennials on this, so I'll jump on the bandwagon here.
Yeah, you got 2 right here, so you better be careful.
I know, but honestly, and I bet you'll agree with me here, Jason, it more than likely, it probably shouldn't always be a bunch of another 22-year-olds. Because
there isn't one in my circle.
That is, but look at the kings in the Bible. We saw what happened when he listened to his friends instead of listening to the older wise men, and the whole country of Israel, paid the price because the king just listened to them. And there's people counting on you. So it's not just you that this affects. It's your family it affects. It's your legacy it affects, and it's your entire purpose here on earth. If you don't reach up higher and try to grab the wisdom and glean from people that are much smarter than you, you'll never be much smarter than you. And I'll even pull this back to the Mastermind. When I first started going to Masterminds, on a scale of 1 to 10, we were probably like a 3 or a 4. But within 3 or 4 years, it was kind of like, well, people were coming to us, asking us, for advice. At that year, I think we had done like 300 deals that year. After we had been in that group for like 3 or 4 years. And, but when we started, it was kind of like, oh, well, we had to kind of reach up to even talk at the same level. But then after being there, and how we got there was because we were willing to put ourselves in those rooms. And so a lot of times people come to the Mastermind, they're like, I'm not ready for this. I'm not really there yet. I want to be able to add value to the group before I come in. And in my opinion, that's just pride speaking. Because you're basically saying, I have to be a 10 before I'm allowed to come into this group. And we're saying, no. The way you get to the 10 is by being in this group.
How do you expect to get there?
It's funny you mentioned that, because when I walked into the Dallas group, I was talking to Eddie about something completely different. He's like, hey, I really want you to be part of this group. So he flew me in, and I came in, and I got in, walked in, and everyone had already started. I'd got there late just because of my plane ticket. And immediately I just felt inadequate to be there. Everyone else, I think I was probably the youngest guy there. Everyone had been in the real estate business for years and years and years. And I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, I don't belong, And so when questions were going around, I was quiet, and I listened, and I gleaned from that. And I think that's key, is don't allow pride to keep you from learning and getting in that circle. I've several times I've taken somebody aside and I said, hey, look, I'm fairly new to this business and you've had success. What can I learn from you? Teach me. I think that's very important too. And you mentioned something too, Tom, about making sure that I'm not surrounded by a bunch of millennials. And that's right. You won't find one in my circle. And I think when young people hear that, they're like, oh, geez. And they picture like you go into like this 9-year-old man sitting on his couch, and you got to bring him a gift. You know what I'm saying? I think they picture that. Yeah. And that's not the case. In my spiritual circle, one of the men is in his 70s, then my dad who just turned 60, and then my other 3 are pastors who are between the ages of 35 and 40. So a lot of, and then in business, I think I have 1 or 2 who are 50s and 60s, and then everyone else is late 30s. So they don't have to be these, old people per se, but they're people that have been in the business longer who are good people that I can trust and learn from.
And they've seen cycles, they've seen different things happen.
Right.
So somebody that doesn't have any experience in what you're talking about, and they're giving you advice on it, like I would be very careful to take advice. You might want to listen to what they have to say because maybe they have a different perspective. But at the end of the day, you really want some. I always tell people when it comes to real estate, for instance, you ought to always be connecting with 3 people. The type of person that went down in the last real estate cycle, they just got buried because they got caught with their pants down or they were over leveraged or whatever the case is. You want to learn from them. People who kind of went through it or they avoided the whole thing just because they kind of just weathered their way through it. And then number 3, people that took advantage of the last real estate cycle. You want to talk to all 3 of those different types of people because they all have a different perspective to learn from. And you don't want to be the guy that got burnt, right? And right. You want to be you know what I'm saying? You really, at the end of the day, you really want to be the person that is setting themselves up to be able to take advantage of when that's going to happen. But
sure. 2 things that I want to comment that you said that I absolutely love. Something I teach teenagers when I go in and I talk about success in the schools is that smart people learn from their own mistakes, but wise people learn from other people's mistakes. Mm-hmm. And so if you can learn from the people that have failed, that will save you a lot of headache. And if you can learn from the people that have had success, that will give you a lot of comfort because even they struggled at times. And so they can help you get through that process of struggling, or they're going to give you wisdom on how to avoid, like you said, pitfalls. And the second thing I thought is it's a great thing to be with the people that made money and survived it. A lot of it's because they knew the people who weren't successful, who got buried, and they were able to capitalize on that. And I know that sounds bad, but it's true. Like, if you know that person and you see that they're not doing well, and all of a sudden you can come along and help them avoid that mess, but then at the same time, it's adding to your portfolio, if that makes any sense.
Well, absolutely. I mean, but like I even look at myself and I'm like, we kind of started into this at the tail end of this, so we didn't really get to take advantage. We made some money on when it went down and kind of went up. But if I would have been really prepared, I think it's more about being prepared. So like if I was really prepared, I would have had a lot more private lending, or I had a lot more cash sitting on the sidelines. Because I mean, we see houses now, Josh, that we're seeing sold for $200,000. We were wholesaling in those same neighborhoods in 2009, 2010 for $39,000.
Oh yeah, same thing here in Nashville.
And you're like, okay, now these houses are selling for $200,000, and we wholesaled these houses for $39,000 or $29,000. I mean, it was just, if I would have just bought the houses and sat on them for 10 years, they would have multiplied by 5, 6, 7, 8 times sometimes.
Kind of makes you sick, What do you think about that? But something that I've told a couple of people that I'm working with is, okay, we've already seen it go up. It's starting to slowly come down. Start preparing for when it does come down so that you can capitalize on that. And then also look for those markets that you could still see that type of benefit. There's still markets out there. A market in Georgia that I'm working in, I believe that to be a market that I'm going to be able to capitalize and see growth. So kind of, like you said, start preparing both with resources, but then also looking for those markets that you can capitalize. I mean, who would have thought 10 years ago Gary, Indiana would be where it is today? And I met you. I know other people out there who are doing well in Gary, but it's because that's how it happens. You're going to find markets that have high highs, but then they have really low lows, or vice versa. And so it's just knowing and really being prepared, look at the data and all that. It's just as much scientific as it is lucky sometimes too.
But it's also something that you did mention is your network, like being connected to people that are either go through the bad time, or like I said, connected to people with money.
Right.
So you can have the private lenders. But it's not just those two. It could be being connected to realtors, or being connected to attorneys, or whatever the case is. But a lot of people on the show have said, your network is your net worth, and the more people that know you, the better it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I want to cap off with this too, because, with the network that we've been involved in, I've been able to grow personally because of some of the people that I've been hanging around with, the top 5. I've actually never heard somebody like do the actual exercise of averaging, but it's the Jim Rohn quote, you're the average of the 5 people you associate with the most. But I love that. That's awesome exercise. Why have I not thought about that before? So something for you guys to do, make sure you do. But one of the key things that people need to understand while going through this, yes, your network is your net worth, but is if you feel like you are that person that you're walking into a room and you're insignificant, you can't share value, and kind of like what Tom was talking about, the number one thing that I think you can do is just to listen. Just listen to people, but actually like apply what you're listening. So listening is not waiting for your turn to talk. It's to actually absorb and be a sponge and use that information, but actually to go and implement it as well. Because if somebody that's much wiser than you is sharing something with you, they're doing it out of the kindness of their heart. They don't have to do it. They could charge you thousands of dollars to get the information from you, but it's all about the network too. I think that true givers are people that are willing to give information and just talk, just be wise with somebody when they're talking with them. So listening is a big part of it, and then applying what you're listening to.
It's so important. We've all been to these conventions where you see the person writing down the notes from the speaker, but they've been there for the last 10 years and they haven't changed. And it's like, dude, the money that you spent going to all these conventions, you probably could have bought in a house. It's so true. It's like you're either gonna actually apply or you're not. And so that's very key. I really concur with what you said.
Right, absolutely. Because it's one thing to be around wise people, but it's another thing to be around them, to listen and then take action on it. So great stuff. So we're going to have to wind this down. It's been a great episode. Jason, we appreciate you and everything that you've shared so far. It's just incredible stuff. I love your story. I did not know, like I said, about the ministry, but I think it's incredible. So we'll pray for you, and obviously let us know if you need anything with that. And I know that you and Tom were talking earlier about getting you on the show. But before we let you go, we got 2 final questions that we're going to ask you. So we ask every single person that we get on the interview here, and I'm excited to hear what you had to say because of the type of person that you are. So good success to us means a lot. Like you already mentioned, you have talked to Tom about what we're doing in Gary, what good success is all about with the Mastermind Community Go-Giver event and everything. So maybe not the specific people in good success, but the term good success. When you hear that term, what does that mean to you? What does good success mean to you?
Good success is your fingerprints. Are your fingerprints going to wind you up in prison, or are they going to be where you look at the impact that you made on people's life? We all are going to leave our finger. My wife is a singer. She wrote a song about that. What kind of fingerprints am I leaving behind? And, if you look on me and my successes, you're going to see fingerprints of people who've invested into me. And at the end of the day, you can't take your money with you, but you can leave a good name that will be carried on for a long, long time. So good success is that. What type of fingerprint are you leaving behind? Are you leaving behind fingerprints where people are like, oh man, that guy's a scam artist or a con artist, or he's just out for himself? Or are you leaving fingerprints behind where people are like, man, I've been blessed because he's been in my life?
Yeah.
To me, that's good success.
I love that. Sounds a lot like legacy as well. Yeah. So good stuff. All right. So, well, thank you for sharing that. So you got to leave the audience with one thing only, no more than one, only one. If it's a quote, if it's a book you've read that you want to share, maybe a piece of advice, a thought, one thing you got to leave the audience with, what would that be?
Okay. There's nothing new under the sun. So if I tell you something you probably heard before, but I'm super proud of this one because I've never heard anyone say it. Okay, so here it is. You ready?
All right, we're ready. Drum roll.
If you're in a slump, go get a haircut. That's it. You want me to elaborate on that?
Elaborate, yeah. Well, I'm trying to register it and think about like what that means, but I couldn't come up with anything. So
yeah, so a lot of times when you find yourself in a slump, you have this attitude that will affect you in your sales, right? And a haircut always makes me feel fresh. A haircut always makes me, it's like a new spirit. It's like taking off the weight and feeling new, right? And so when you're in a slump, sometimes you just need to leave the baggage. And so go get a haircut. It's super simple. It's super stupid. People are going to laugh, but it's so true. When I wrote that check, or not check, when I wrote those letters, I'd gotten a haircut that day. So you know what I'm saying? It's just a mindset sometimes. It's not actually getting a haircut. Maybe you have to go out and buy a new car. I don't know, but do something fresh that's going to encourage you.
Maybe you need to shave.
Yeah, you need to shave. I love it. No, thank you for sharing that. That's awesome stuff. So get a haircut.
Did you shave your back?
Fresh haircut. just get a haircut.
Haircut. Cut your hair somewhere.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, fresh. Stay fresh. Fresh haircut. We're good. All right, cool.
What if you're bald?
If you're bald, ooh,
go buy a wig.
Oh.
Go get a hair transplant.
It's still fresh. You
gotta sell a house to get that hair transplant.
It's still fresh if you get a wig. So
polish it.
Nice.
All right.
So if you're in a slump, get a haircut.
Boom. Got it. All right. Well, appreciate you sharing that.
Good success is about the fingerprints that you're leaving. What are you leaving? Good finger. So I'm assuming then it's good fingerprints though that are good success then.
Right. Yeah. What kind of fingerprints are you leaving behind? Is it good or is it bad? If it's bad, then you've been a failure.
Right.
And your reputation is going to follow you. Reputation is what people say about you. Character is what people know about you. So, and your fingerprints will determine both of those.
Awesome. Well, great stuff. Well, Jason, we're going to have to wrap this show up, but we appreciate everything that you have shared with us so far. Thank you so much for being on the show. But before you go, first, if somebody wanted to contact you, so if somebody wanted to get in contact with you, maybe a website, maybe an email address or whatever, Facebook page or whatever, what's the best way for somebody to get in contact with you?
Man, you can find me on Facebook, Jason Engelman. I do have a public profile page, which I hardly ever use, but you can message me on that. You can find me on our ministry page, which is Revolution 13, and the domain page is One Man 3 Days. So you can find me on our ministry page. Please follow us on that because you will be able to see radio shows sometimes I upload, or you can follow us as we speak in the schools. So check us out there, or Instagram, the great Jay Parker.
All right. Awesome. Sounds good. Well,
and so what's the name of the radio show and where can they listen to it at? Is there like certain places that they can find you at?
You can. So the name of the show is Synergy. And the easiest way, I'm on so many different stations, but the easiest way is download the TuneIn app on your phone. And you can tune in and listen to the Nashville program, or the Nashville station that we air. It's Monday through Friday at 3:30. It's a 15-minute show. So from 3:30 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Monday through Friday. And that's 1300 AM. I need to give that to you. So 1300 AM WNQM Nashville.
All right. Great stuff. Awesome. Can you say that website one more time for us that you mentioned?
Is it the One Man?
Yeah. So One Man 3 Days. Now the website's under construction, but you can also use that to get on our Facebook page. One Man 3 Days.
Okay, sounds good. Well, Jason, we appreciate you being on the show today. Thank you for everything that you shared.
Absolutely.
And we definitely look forward to having you back again soon.
That'd be great. Thank you so much for the opportunity. You guys are awesome.
All right, thanks, great Jason. Stuff. So that is going to do it for today's episode. We appreciate you jumping on and joining us for this Good Success podcast episode. And if you haven't already, make sure you have subscribed to the podcast, or just go to the mobile app on your phone. Just go to the Google Play Store for Android and then the App Store for Apple, and just download the Good Success app. It's 10 times easier, so just do that. And then the Good Success Mastermind, May 14 through 18 in Miami, Florida. It's going down. It's going to be awesome. So if you want to learn more about it, go to goodsuccess.com/mastermind. We talked a lot about the group of people that you're going to be hanging around. So the Mastermind is definitely a place that you can take advantage of that and up your average, right? So goodsuccess.com/mastermind. Fill out the application there.
I like
and
that.
Then
we should do a.
We'll do one. Yeah,
up your average.
Up your average at the Good Success Mastermind. It's a t-shirt.
Like
T-shirt idea. Cool. So then that's that. So fill out the application, and then you'll talk on the phone call with Tom, and then hopefully we'll see you in Miami. And then the Community Go Giver event, communitygogiver.com, to get your tickets now. And for the 30% off coupon code, can we say it again? Should we just give it to them one more time? You just got to say it one more time.
Why not?
Community. So the secret code, use when you're going to add the tickets to cart, use the word community and you'll get 30% off your tickets. Boom. There it is. You have no excuses. Go sign up, communitygogiver.com. That's going to do it for today's episode. We appreciate you jumping on and joining us today. Remember to be a conduit and not a bucket.
Work to have to give.
And we'll catch you on the next one.